Welcome to the On Your Mind podcast, where we are changing the mental health narrative, bringing hope and solutions. Here's your host, Timothy J. Hayes, psychologist.
Dr. Loren Michaels-Harris became an authority on how to shed shame and reinvent blame after having survived 6 years within the state foster care system and having experienced the joys and traumas associated with having had 22 different mothers. Loren is dedicated to sharing with others his systemic approach in harnessing the true power found within life's curveballs, thereby utilizing that power to refine one's trajectory in life. As a mentor and breakthrough coach, author, and friend, Loren Michaels-Harris believes we are all part of the ripple effect, and that it is his duty to use his story to create a ripple effect that will reach positively around the globe. Well, Dr. Loren, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Delightful to have you face-to-face, and I'm hoping you could start us off with a little story about how you do the work you do, how you got into it, and what drives your passion for it.
Well, I got into it like a salmon, swimming upstream. That's what it felt like. But then I flipped over and started swimming along with the current, which means to me, the swimming upstream part were all the things that I didn't know, but nonetheless I had to live with and deal with. But I got to a point in my journey where I realized that purpose, everything that is greater than me, really works on a need-to-know basis. And once I embraced, things began to get a lot easier to manage. So what that means to me is, and what I share with others, is that it's never about just one thing. I could have chosen to stay swimming upstream thinking that everything was working against me. But I'd had enough. I chose to seek differently. And once I chose to seek differently, I started living and experiencing in a whole new way. And so the work I do today is based on, I believe the process is you go into things, right? And you go in and you have nothing, no compass oftentimes, but you do have one G and one O because you got to go. You just have to because you're pushed in the pool. And so once you keep moving, I, for many decades, listened to what I refer to today as wall talk. People saying, oh, don't worry, Loren, you'll get over that. There must be a way around it, or somehow you're going to find a way to dig yourself from underneath this. And they meant well, all those well-wishers, but it was wall talk and opportunities I'd never heard. It dawned on me one day, well, I've never heard of a wall of opportunity. I've heard of windows and doors because I now know that what is greater than myself, everything that works to serve me, helps me find my highest self each day, knows that if I find the courage, which I did and still do on a day-to-day basis, to peek through the window of purpose, all I have to do is reach for the hand of what is greater than me, and together we walk through that door of purpose. And you got to go into it if you want to get through the other side. And so today, once you go, you come out the other side, you go, oh, wait a minute, I don't just have a G and an O, I have an R and a W as well. So you go, then you grow. Now you're immediately an authority. So you know something. And then the automatic thing for me anyway, and I believe for most of us, is that desire to be of service. Now you must give it away. So you show people. So you go, you grow, and you show. And so that's how I got into the work I do today. And that's the long version. That's the long version.
And so what would you say pushed you into the pool, so to speak? What was the turning point in your life?
The turning point was, what pushed me in the pool were things I had no control over. Trauma, the unexpected, the unforeseen, all those things that begin the grooming process, or they did for me anyway. And I just finished posting about that about 20 minutes ago regarding faith. For decades, I believed that faith was a thing. I remember when someone told me once, an old gentleman, he actually heard me praying for faith and said, "Hey, youngster, don't you know faith is the only thing you can't pray for?" And I was like, "What?" He said, "No, because if it has to be given to you, then you don't have it." And it clicked. It made sense. But then years later, I found my way into a belief that for me, faith is not a thing any longer. It's a place. And it's wherever I find myself. I keep it within reach, like in my pocket, if you will. And I have to, no matter what it looks like on the outside, as long as I keep that pebble of faith, that thing the size of a mustard seed, as we're told, somewhere on my person, within my spirit, it is there with me, no matter what. And so today, I believe that that's my commission, if you will, is to help those who are seeking to find that little piece that I know to be true. And I only share with people those things I know to be true, which means the jury's not out any longer. The verdict is in, which means it's not in my pocket on a thumb drive. It's on my hard drive. I know that I will not change this mindset ever, no matter what. And so a lot of people are hungry for something to believe in. There's an innate desire within all of us to be a part of something greater than ourselves. And I find the first place to fulfill that need is within faith.
One of the things that I've heard over the years that really resonated for me is an ancient definition for the word that's come down from the ancient Aramaic into English, and it comes down to us as faith. But in the ancient Aramaic, it was a word that meant acting from the rooted center of your being. So finding the truth, the core truth of your being, and then acting from that. And you are certainly taking actions these days. Can you talk to us about some of the activities that you have going, some of the work you're doing?
I can, but I want to hit something that you brought in, which is very important. When you said acting, it had the ing on it. And that means we're in the process. It is actually happening, ing. If somebody calls you and you're busy, sorry, I can't talk right now. I'm working, or I'll call you later. I'm sleeping. You're in the process of the act. And that's why I love the mindset that faith is a place, because I am living in every moment, which means I'm within that action of living. And when faith is there with me, I don't have to seek it. It's already here. All I have to do is reach for it, reaching, right? Believing, all those things. So the work I do today, and let me just be clear, because work is a definition that's different from person to person. But for me, when I speak to that question of what my work is, it boils down to what I can do and do it to the best of my ability to ease suffering in the world. And so I will respond to your question from there. For me, what I do to ease suffering in the world is, first of all, I show up no matter what, every day, based on who I am that day. And then I know the moment my eyes open, because it is a blessing, that I'm already great because I'm still here. And then I just spend that day seeking an E and an R so that I can say at the end of the day, yes, look at that. I've taken great to greater. Because if I do that on a consistent basis, one day when I transition from here to whatever is next and to whatever form I take next, hopefully what is greater than me can say, see, every day you got up great and you looked for ways to become greater. And that's why now you're leaving this journey one of my greatest. That's basically it. So the work I do changes from moment to moment, person to person. I do coaching. I coach people that come to me. I don't choose them. I don't believe, and I don't believe they choose me. They think they do. But I believe that we've already been chosen for each other. And when we come together, it's not just about what I can provide them, but I also let them know that I am seeking what they are bringing to me, because within purpose, I believe there's always a two-way feed. It's never about just one thing. The way I help people the most, believe it or not, my coaching is a little different. Number one, I don't start working with people based on pointing out to them what's missing. I believe we should all start with becoming great stewards of what we already have, no matter what that is. And so many of us throw our greatest gifts, even trauma and things like that, into proverbial junk drawers. We let them slide and slip between the cushions of our lives or under the seat. The first thing I do is we look for all the things you already have. Because, I look at life like a table, a banquet table with a plethora of chairs around it. And so you got to set the table before you can serve those who will sit in those chairs, those people that occupy the front row seats of our lives, And with that table, it keeps me humble, keeps ego out of the way, because I know that I've asked and requested a seat at the table, but I also am reminded constantly who built that table. And that is who is whatever you ascribe to that is greater than myself. And that's exactly how I refer to it. Everything that is greater than me. So, that accountability part, being a great steward, bringing everything to the middle of the table. Because when we do that, we start seeing the things that are missing instead of looking for things that we think are missing when we already have them. And I think that's what keeps so many people stuck. They're looking for things they already have, but they're looking every place but where they're at. And so that's how I begin my work with my coaching clients. And believe it or not, and then I remove, when people work with me, there's no expiration date. So you don't come into my world of coaching for a 6-month program or a 12-week program. They come in once and they come in for life. It holds me accountable and it lets them know there's no, clock ticking where it's going to run out. When's this going to happen? I don't know what the divine is doing in your life or the timing of it. And I know that if I promise you I'm going to do my best and I'll be here with you, beside you. See, it's none of us are above or below, in front or behind. We should be where we are meant to be, right there next to each other. So I promise people that I'll be there with you. And that changes a lot, believe it or not, Tim, in their approach to what they believe is possible. And suddenly, all the things they've been seeking, or a great majority of them, start to appear. I think it's because I'm all that, and it's not. It's because they were always exactly who they are. They just didn't realize it. So I do that. And then one of my passion pieces is because it seems to me that my entire journey has been crafted, sketched, if you will, drawn in around that sacred season known as childhood. My journey and the trauma came into my life from the very beginning, a product of rape, stolen from my mother in the hospital. And I didn't see her again for 32 years, my birth mother. All the children that passed through my world, all those years in foster care. And all the things, all the decades it took me to get to where I am today. Everything is about kids and the innocence and the mystery and the magic of that season. So I have a thing called the Power of We Symposium. It's not a nonprofit, it's a movement. And we go wherever we're asked to go to pour into kids, to spend a day with them, a week with them, however long we're asked to go, just loving them, listening to them, being there for them and with them, eye to eye, knee to knee, heart to heart. I remember when I was in the system, people would come in, politicians and different folks with their own agendas, their own angles, and they'd get us the group home or the foster home, get us all dressed up. The people would take pictures with us and put us on their shoulders and things. And then they'd go into that meeting they were really there for. And we'd wait around wanting more of what they gave us on the front end. And then they'd come out and suddenly we were invisible. They'd walk right. One time, a guy even pushed me out of my way, kid. I've never forgotten that. And so we, in the Power of We, when we go to pour into these kids, it is whatever the amount of time, it's focused directly on them, with them, for them. And so I love that. And then, I speak on stages when I'm asked. I don't speak on stages where they allow you to pay to play, whether I'm doing it or not, or anyone else, even if anyone else. And it's one of the rules within my coaching program. We do not stand on stages where people can pay to play. And a lot of people go, well, why not? What's wrong with that? Well, I'll tell you why. Because when people pay for a platform, they pay to say whatever they want. And it does not have to be integrity based. It can come with an angle. Just because I don't own a wet labradoodle, that shakes and makes, I can still walk away from a situation smelling like I own a wet labradoodle because of guilt by association. So we don't do that because I encourage the people that work with me, and I am steadfast in this myself. I don't want anyone to ever point to me when I'm gone from this place and say, Loren sold me this or that. I really would hope that they would say, Loren told me this or that. And so I don't sell. I merely tell. I tell what I know to be true. And I leave it at that, no matter what. So I speak on stages. And then, I have a television network now to provide content, Trajectory Television, where content meets direction, providing people who want to take their story as far as that story can reach, which is endless. It's boundless. And so that is there in Trajectory Magazine, which supports those storytellers and creatives. We have that now, basically, which I hate that word because nothing within purpose is basic. So I retract that statement. Those are the things. It's really story, just having a conversation and encouraging people to live not a version of their story. A version means that something was left out or something was added or, fluffed up. Live your authentic story, which means you must go back no matter if you're a believer or you're an atheist. All of our stories begin with once upon a time or in the beginning. Choose. But you must go back, or at least be willing to one day go back to the very beginning so that you can understand your journey in its fullness. I remember when I started my television show, Bathrobe Moments, and I'd have an author and they'd send me the copy of the book so that I could prepare for their interview. And I was shocked at how many books people wrote that started with, it all began when I was 17 years old. My story begins during the birth of my first child, things like that. And I go, how can that be? That's not where it began. And so, it's just really for me waking up each day. And I no longer shoot for the beach, the sand that I see across the water. I shoot for the horizon because the horizon is where the sun that I see coming up or setting, somewhere in the world, someone else is watching it in reverse. And I think about them and I wonder who you are. And I believe in my own case, my own situation, that by doing that, it provides me a global opportunity because I am connecting. Because I do believe in the promise of two or more. I really do. That's why it's called the power of we, not the power of me. And my life changed just by turning one letter in the opposite direction from the M into the W, because it's all about being of service and seeking everything that is possible outside of myself after I have acknowledged what is possible within myself. I know it probably sounds a little boring, but it keeps me going. It makes every day
So
awesome.
can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about the Power of We Symposium, how it functions, how people get in touch with you about it, where you're active with that?
The Power of We Symposium is an annual event, usually takes place in the month of May. It has every year so far. And it started in 2018 here in Chicago to service inner city youth. Because I live in the Chicago area in a suburb, and every time you watch the news, and they talk about the kids in those hard hit areas, they only show the negative. I never saw, or very seldom would see them celebrate the kids that were doing their best and contributing and dreaming to change this world. So I went looking for them and I found them. And so the Power of We is designed to spend a day. Like I said, there's a red carpet and paparazzi and a step and repeat. And I always choose a facility, an event facility, a venue, if you will, that has wrought iron fencing. Because one of my favorite movies that just resonates still, I have the posters and the golden ticket right there, was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Because I'll never forget, I was with those kids when they stood outside waiting for him to come down that red carpet that day to get into the chocolate factory with their golden ticket. And so, the kids show up, the buses drop them off out front, and they see all of us who are there to serve them that day. We're dressed in tuxedos and evening gowns, and they look through the fence, and we purposely keep them locked out. They watch us pose, and the paparazzi's over here, over here. Then we go into the mansion, or in Atlanta, it was the Biltmore ballrooms, and most recently in Romania when we were in tour just last month. And then we go out the back door, and we come around the block right up behind them. And they're still watching people there. We go, what are you looking at? And they don't even turn around in most cases. Look at all those stars. And then they turn around and see us. Hey, you were just in there. And we go, yeah. But we want you to know we're not stars. We're people just like you. We're just older versions. But listen, we're going to open up this gate. And now we're going to line that red carpet, and we're going to celebrate you, as we're going to do all day long. Because we want you to just trust us for today. That if you come into this experience, when you come into this experience from a standpoint of faith, you may walk in as a stargazer, but we're going to make sure you leave this place as a trailblazer, knowing all that you have within you, which is purposeful and brilliant, and believe that you can change this world. And so the Power of We, there's a website, powerofwesymposium.com. And people can go there, and you can reach out if you're a community or, a school or wherever. And you say, hey, how do we get our kids to the Power of We? It's completely sponsored. We raise every penny. Kids, the chaperones, no one ever pays to come into the Power of We. We do sell vendor space, and we do sell sponsorship packages, of course, to pay for the event. Never, ever paid for the whole thing from raising funds. And this year was very challenging because it was our first time out of the country, and shocked me that usually there's, 5 or 6, a handful of corporate supporters who will buy one of our packages. But this time, not one of them would do it because we weren't servicing kids in the United States. So I had to take it for the first time ever to the people, and I did it through GoFundMe. And we raised pretty close to 60% of the cost. It's interesting because I just posted just a little while ago about the difference between fear and faith. And I said, just this morning, I woke up and I look at the week in front of me. Why? Because I have people knocking on the door because there's still $30,000 that I have to pay people that trusted me. We'll advance you this service or that product, and we'll trust that you'll pay us. We'll give you 3 months after you come back from Romania. And that time is now. And, you wake up and you don't know where it's coming from. That's why faith is a place. Thank God for that. And so Power We is that thing, because I never want to forget how important the magic of youth is, and all the secrets and all the things that we don't have answers to, that I believe those answers exist in our children. We just have to keep them vested, healthy, happy, and most importantly, alive long enough for them to bring it out and get it out. That's the Power We. And you can find everything on the website. There's pictures and video, there's testimonials. And then if you're interested in, all of our people volunteer. No one ever gets paid. They all volunteer. I want people there that are there because they want to be.
So did you say you started this in 2018?
Yeah.
What was the impetus for this back then?
Great question. I'll be honest, transparent. I had that year just completed my 100th stage appearance. And it was the first time, speech number 100 for me, was the first time I ever shared the stage with other people. And at that event in San Diego, I went out to San Diego. I met a marketer there from Las Vegas. And I used to live in Las Vegas. And he goes, we should do something together. I was like, okay, great. I didn't have any events. I didn't have anything. I was I had just gone to my first one with other people. I thought, this is great. Let's do it. And we went, but I didn't know about that pay to play thing. So, we each had so many slots. I gifted all of my stage slots, of course, to my coaching clients, because that is my model. You do the work and I will provide you the stages in which to get that work into the hearts, hands of the people. Whereas the person I partnered with, the marketer, he sold all his slots. And that's when I witnessed all of that stuff that was, in my opinion, non-integral. There were tons of angles. They were literally taking pictures of people out on the floor and coming backstage and comparing notes and saying, well, don't try to sell her or him your package or your services or your coaching. They don't have any money. And it just left a horrible, horrible taste in my spiritual mouth. We got on the plane to come home, and I turned to my husband, Brian, and I said, I'm going under my headset, this very headset. And I said, I'm not coming out until God gives me a dose of spiritual Listerine to get this awful taste out of my mouth. And I'm not kidding you, Tim. As soon as I heard the pilot, the light came on, put your seat up and wheels down, we're landing in O'Hare. I heard it, Power of We Symposium. And I whipped off those headphones and I looked at Brian and I said, they gave it to me. He goes, what is it? I said, it's something called the Power of We Symposium. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to start with that name. And I went the very next day to look at the Stan Mansion in downtown Chicago. And as soon as I looked at that building, the whole Willy Wonka thing came rushing through me. And I saw the kids. I saw it all. And it only took once. That's the beautiful thing about the truth. It is the only thing in the universe that never changes and will never change on you. And you only need to hear it, feel it, experience it once, if that's what you're truly seeking. So the moment I saw it, I knew what the Power of We Symposium was going to do. And we've been doing it ever since. And that's it in a nutshell.
Wonderful. So it's the powerofwesymposium.com is the website?
Mm-hmm. No, just powerofwesymposium.com.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And people can reach out to you through that website if they want to contribute, if they want to participate, or if they want to get a group of kids exposed to it.
Absolutely. And also on my personal website, LorenMichaels-Harris.com, there are tabs there for all of the things that I do. The network, the magazine, the Power of We, my masterclass, my coaching, everything that I have available that I feel I've been missioned or ordained or anointed to help ease suffering in the world through. You'll find it all in one place.
So what motivated you to go for a doctorate?
I didn't. It's honorary.
All right.
Because, thank you for bringing that in. I graduated high school. I was 10th in my class out of 362. And I was still in the system, and which is hard because most kids in the system are remedial. But I had been in parochial school until my adopted mother passed away unexpectedly when I was 11. So I was a little ahead, but I just loved to learn as a child. And so when I graduated, I got into some really great schools, but I couldn't go to any because I was still a ward of the state. And there was no way to get financial aid without your parents. I was 17 when I graduated. So, and then, you start that paperwork early in the year, right after the turn of the year. And there was no money for me. So I had a lot of shame and guilt attached to not having advanced degrees and stuff, but God took care of that. Someone nominated me for my work, primarily the Power of We Symposium, I believe, but maybe even the other stuff, the stage work. And the next thing you know, I got the word, we'd like you to come to Atlanta to receive this honorary doctorate degree. And it was very difficult for me to accept it because I didn't know that this manifestation outside of my own was even possible, that what is greater than me could manifest things for me. I never saw that. That happened a lot in the last 2 years. I got to do a movie. I got 2 more coming up this summer. I never thought, well, I wonder if I can do movies. And it just came. it was manifested on my behalf. I do believe today that the younger versions of me, the younger boys, when I was known as Larry, the name that they gave me to keep me hidden from the authorities, that was never my real name, but it was the name I knew until my mother died. And they just walked in and said, "You're not Larry, you're Loren." And so I believe those younger versions of me helped to manifest a lot of the things that come out of nowhere today. I really do. Because just like trauma grows with us, so do dreams. And the young boys who went through the hardest times in my life, I believe they manifested a lot of those things that are coming today that I could have never expected. So, and then I had to face, imposter syndrome because the bowel. I'll never ask Mark. Mark had it the day the regalia showed up. It was like I brought it in. It was on the stoop. I brought it and I put it on the dining room table. I was home alone that weekend. And I'm not kidding you. You come in the front door, you come through the house, and you can go to the deck through the family room and then go out the garage through the other way. And to cut through there, that box was sitting on the dining room table. Every time I wanted to get to the other side, to the kitchen or the dining room or the living room or go upstairs, I would go all the way around the house and come in the other door. So I wouldn't have to pass that box because it felt like, to me, it was going, "Hey, you, what are you doing with this? You don't deserve this." And I called Mark Haddis. I was like, "Mark, this box, I can't walk past it. It feels like there's a dead body in my dining room, on display." And I'll never forget, he said, "Find the courage to open the box, Loren, and just hang it up, hang the robe up and the sash and all the cords and stuff, the regalia, and start the process of becoming one with it." So that's exactly what I did. It wasn't until I was in Atlanta, I was in line, and some of the graduates, because I think it was alphabetical, and I was the third row out of four, and I was like 4 people away. And all I was doing was like, make sure you don't trip. Remember how you're supposed to dip down so they can hood you and all of that, all the different things we'd practiced. So I'm going through it in my head, my heart's pounding. Out of nowhere, I hear, "Hey, Loren, look to the left." That's where all the graduates were. And I looked, and I didn't see them. I saw rolling hills as far as the eye could see. And I know this is going to sound strange to a lot of you, but it happened. And I saw on the top of each hill, and they were staggered so that none were directly behind the other. They were every other. And I thought, that's interesting. And there wasn't the front of the domino. I saw dominoes, like doors, the size of a doorway. But I didn't see the size with the dots, the numbers. I just saw the blank side, the back. And I heard a voice say, "We're showing you this in a way that you can understand." And I said, "Well, why am I not seeing the numbers?" They said, "Because we want you to understand that this experience is not more or less valuable than any other experience you've ever had or will ever have. If we were to show you the numbers and said which one is the most valuable, you'd run for the double six, right past the 2 blanks. And that's not what it's about." That happened. And they said, when you were created, you were given a spiritual keychain, if you will. And every door, every time you ascended and you rang the bell because you learned and you grew, we placed a key of opportunity on that ring. Hear it. Hear the sound of them. Feel the weight of it in your right hand. And keep going. And that was it. All of a sudden, they said my name. And I went up, got hooded, and left. Now, that was in May of 21. So then, December of this past year, I get the call on Monday, "Can you come to Las Vegas on Friday to receive President Biden's Lifetime Achievement Award?" Again, dealing with, imposter syndrome. What? First thing that came rushing through my spirit was, lifetime achievement? Am I about to die? Really happened. Same thing like the coffin or the body of the regalia in there. Just like, this is what happens to kids like me. I'm there in Las Vegas that Friday. In line, there were 10 of us. Again, I'm 4 away because it was alphabetical there too. And I heard it again. Loren, look to the left. And I didn't even hesitate. I looked, not dominoes this time, but literal doorways. He said, "This is the second time we've requested that you look to the left." But this time, look at those doorways. They're all open, but you don't see anything there. These are all the doorways that purpose has provided you, and you are thereby allowed and granted access to provide these same doorways of opportunity to people you serve in the world. Fill those keys. See, they're heavier than the last time. We're going to ask you one more time in this journey to look to the left, and it'll be right as you transition. But know this, when you look that third and final time, you'll see the faces looking back at you of all of those that you have served and those who are able to serve through what you served them with. And that is the moment that you will not have one moment of fear about what is next for you, because those faces will look at you and you will know, you will hear them, you will feel them saying to you, go into what is next for you, Loren, because you're going to think it's too soon. I'm not done. I'm not ready. What about my overflow? I still have work to do. But it is those faces that will calm you, and they will say, go into what is next. Leave your work here, because we see the world that is coming, and we will be right here, fiercely protecting your work, and we will give it to them when they get here. So go into what is next for you. And then suddenly they said my name, and I went up on the stage and received my award. It's like, I know they work different. When I say they, I mean God, spirit, everything that is greater than me. I joke with people and I say, even roaches, if you put me in a room in the dark with a few roaches, you turn on the light, they're going to move faster than me. I guarantee. So in that particular situation, they are greater than I am. And so anything that has a life or a force upon life, wind, rain, nature, I honor it and I respect it. And I call on it. I believe that as the only creature in this world that I know of that speaks, gives us dominion, but not over other creatures that speak, but over things like when I talk to my plants and they flourish, or I talk to my cats, Ethel and Lucy, and I say, go get your toy, and they get it. So I use that dominion every day. Are we okay now?
We're okay now. I have you now.
Okay.
You told us about the 100th talk you gave on a stage.
Yeah.
What was the first?
Oh, the first one was, well, my bread and butter speech, as I called it back then, was the ripple effect. How everything we do, just like when you throw a pebble in the water, it goes on and it goes on and it goes on. And the first one, it's so interesting because, well, I guess you could say, well, that was my first paid engagement. The very first speech was something called Listen to Your Mother. And I auditioned for it. It was a nationally touring opportunity where up until that year, it had only been women who would come in and audition, and they would get on stage. They'd have like 13 or 14 of them, I don't know, depending on the city. And they would talk about their particular story of motherhood. But this year they wanted to see if men would be willing to. So someone said, hey, there's this thing coming. You should audition because of your 22 mother story. I was like, no, I don't want to tell people that. I'm ashamed of that. Well, I did. Interestingly enough, as purpose would have it, after they provided me the footage, which was about 2 months after that actual night, someone said, you should put that on a YouTube channel, which I didn't even have one. So I opened one up and they said, keep it there, archive it for safekeeping. And it was about 2 months later that Goldcast found it. And they're the people in Canada that make all the motivational videos. And I was working on the very first Power of We at the time. And I thought they were just somebody trying to sell me something. I didn't know who they were. And I wasn't responding until the night before, in 2019, the night before, the Friday night before Mother's Day. They found my number, this banner. They blew it up. They saw it on something I posted and found my phone number at the bottom. And my phone lit up and it said Canada. And I had just gotten hired by Parliament there to come and speak. So I thought it was them. And they said, are you crazy? That was the first thing they said when I said hello. I said, who is this? They said, it's Goldcast. Anyway, they took that video. They produced it. They had already produced it. They released it 2 days later. And today that video has millions and millions of views. And so that was the very first time I spoke my truth. Now, the one in San Diego, that 100, was the first time someone paid me. No, it wasn't the first time they paid me, but it was the first time I shared the stage with other people.
Right.
So I was hearing other speakers and, Greg Reed and Sharon Lecter and people from The Secret and things like that, Les Brown. And I was like, wow.
So people can listen to that or watch that Gold Coast on your website.
Yeah, the Gold Coast video is on my website. You can just Google. I always tell people, Tim, because I don't put everything up there, but you know how SEO is. So if you Google Loren Michaels-Harris, I really like when people do that because I'd rather they get baptized or have the opportunity, if you will, into the full body of work. Because oftentimes we're looking for one thing, but I know that it's never about just one thing. And they go there and they find something else. Oh, I didn't know you had an album. Oh, I didn't know you did this or you did that. So I always try to suggest to people that just Google the name. You might find something you weren't looking for, So it's all there. It's all out there for you to find if you want it.
Well, I greatly appreciate your taking the time to share with us. I have a feeling that, if I ask you for a closing comment, we could be here for another hour. But if I tell you we've got just a few minutes left, take a breath, get centered, and either go back to something you've already talked about or something you haven't even mentioned yet you want us to know about as you're getting ready to help us wrap this up today.
I always try to, when people ask that question, I always say to myself, Loren, what if you could mute the world for just 1 minute and everybody could hear you, or if everybody forgot everything you ever said in your life except for one line, what would it be? And I always come to this thing right here. Whatever in your world is there and it does not serve you, find a way, no matter what, to get rid of it. Things that do not serve us must go. Trust me. It took me 4 decades to find that truth, because now today I am unequivocally sure that the longer you leave things in your world that do not serve you, the longer you risk giving them a chance to convince you to serve them. Look for things that have no name. What's wrong? Everything. Who is it? Just those people. Anything that does not have proper noun attached to it. It's operating on what I consider a butterfly flight pattern. It's all over the place and you'll never catch it. If you can't catch it, you can't do anything about it. So find those things that do not serve you. First of all, bless them. Then thank them, because you could not have gotten to where you are without them. So how bad could they have truly been? Just like now, our time together, this sacred time together, all the abuse, all the horrible things that people will say, oh, poor Loren. No. How bad could it have been when all of it led me directly right here to you? And then if its time is up and it is no longer serving you, then banish it. Thank it and tell it to go. And watch what happens in your life.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking time to share with our audience today. And people can find out more about you at LorenMichaels-Harris.com.
Yeah.
And Power of We Symposium.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Power
of course,
Symposium.com.
And of course, as you're recommending people go ahead and Google you and get the full spectrum of all the different work that you're involved in. All right. Well, blessings. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us. It's an honor.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Dr. Loren Michaels-Harris became an authority on how to shed shame and reinvent blame after having survived 6 years within the state foster care system and having experienced the joys and traumas associated with having had 22 different mothers. Loren is dedicated to sharing with others his systemic approach in harnessing the true power found within life's curveballs, thereby utilizing that power to refine one's trajectory in life. As a mentor and breakthrough coach, author and friend, Loren Michaels-Harris believes we are all part of the ripple effect, and that it is his duty to use his story to create a ripple effect that will reach positively around the globe. Loren Michaels-Harris is the founder of the Power of We Symposium, an event dedicated to uplifting, celebrating, and encouraging underserved youth leaders around the globe. The Power of We Symposium provides a one-day experience for these kids that allows them access to areas of opportunity most have never dreamed possible. In November of 2022, Loren launched his own television network, Trajectory TV, and also Trajectory Magazine. Dr. Michaels-Harris also received the White House Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award on December 3rd, 2022.
You've been listening to the On Your Mind podcast, offered by Journey's Dream, where we support people through mental health challenges to a place of true and lasting well-being. If you love our show, we invite you to visit onyourmindpodcast.org to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our helpful resources. Thank you for listening.